Hangouts?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, when Hangouts goes away. It's supposed to be this month, I thought. Like, I think it's in a few days or something, but we'll see.
Yeah, I heard they were closing it down, but I can't imagine that they're going to kibosh live streaming on YouTube, so...
There'll be some way to do what we're doing, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering... I got to change the way I'm sitting. I just want... I can't see them saying, oh, you can't live stream on YouTube anymore.
Well, I mean, it is not out of the realm of possibility of Google. I mean, Google did say, "Oh, RSS feeds." Now, what's the alternative? Nope.
Yeah,
we got nothing. That's it. You're done.
Yeah, but if people can't live stream to YouTube, then what? I mean, it's kind of core to YouTube.
We've got a meme here. I think the meme is like, "Feeling cute today, might do a podcast later."
Yeah. I could go sit on the bed, but the plug is behind the bed, so I'm staying with some friends, and there's not really I could go do this out at the kitchen table, but then the kids screaming might bug you guys.
No, it's fine. Oh, I just asked Manny if he's jibbing. Autocomplete. I get some weird autocompletes. There's some.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There's like one that I type all the time, and it like autocompletes to this weird, like strange word that I would never use, but but I've actually accidentally sent it so many times that it believes that is. So there's like no.
Yeah. Autocomplete and Siri continue to be a train wreck. So
yeah,
when I text people, hey, it's Chuck, about half the time it autocorrects my name to Chick.
Chip?
And so Chick.
Yeah.
Like a baby chicken.
Oh.
It's Chick. I like it.
So then they get like 4 texts in a row, right?
Yeah, it's like Chick. Hey, Chick. Gah.
Yeah, so they get the text. Hey, I'm on my way. By the way, this is Chick. I mean, Chuck. Damn, autocorrect. Dang it. So yeah. Oh, I'm tired.
Long week.
Travel's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Where are you now?
I'm just outside of San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
And they're going to interview me for their YouTube video show thing, and so it'll be out in a month. I finally edit it. It's funny because they've been picking my brain on doing a show, and I think I've convinced. So I've convinced her that they should do it podcast style. And he's not so convinced, so it's kind of funny watching them discuss it.
Sowing marital discord.
Yeah, that's my job.
Chuck's a homewrecker.
Yeah, but they paid me to come out here, so they're friends of mine. They used to live out in Utah, but they paid my travel expenses. So then I drove into San Francisco yesterday and met up with Airbrake, which is a former sponsor, and we had a long conversation about podcast sponsorships, which was kind of funny because I actually got some ideas from them on how I could do sponsorships slightly differently, just on the ad read end of things. They're like, well, I listen to this show and they do it this way. I'm like, that's kind of clever. I kind of like that, and so I'm thinking through it, but it's tricky too because I'm not hosting as many of the shows, and so I'd have to get the hosts on those shows to do that.
Yeah, because
some of them are like sort of live read kind of style things, which I'm not opposed to, but it's more work. But it might be more effective for the sponsors. So I might be able to charge more for the sponsorships, but anyway, and I'm gonna be heading over there this afternoon to meet with Netlify, who's another current sponsor. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's funny because I've been invoicing some of these other sponsors that I've either just lined up or have been sponsoring for a while. And it's like, oh wait, you're in San Francisco too? Do you want to meet this afternoon after I talk to Netlify? So that's been kind of fun. And then just chatting with them, we've talked about all kinds of stuff. They like to talk, and I'm kind of tired now because talking wears me out. Like that kind of engaged talking wears me out. So
Chuck
anyway.
is in a very seductive pose today.
What's that, man?
He said about his seductive. I was just saying, have you seen that meme, Manny? The feeling cute today might. I was like, I think Chuck has got the feeling cute today. Might record a podcast later.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but I do have to get off right at 10 o'clock Pacific time. So, but yeah, so I've been figuring that out. I also changed the way that we're scheduling podcast topics now, and I think that's been better. So, yeah, just kind of working through the processes this week, and next week I'm going to be mostly just fixing stuff. I got to put the podcast booth together, and my wife won't let me spend the money in the yard, so I actually have to go and do the work in the yard myself. So that's my week tomorrow or next week. So. Anyway.
Did you so that podcast booth, have you used that yet, or you're still?
I haven't even built it yet, so.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that's what I'm doing is I'm just going to build it next week. It'll probably take me a day or so, but yeah, then I'm taking it to NGConf in May, and I've got to start getting people scheduled. So yeah, but the conference organizers are totally playing ball with me. So that, I just need to reach out to them and say, hey, I want to talk to these people and see if they will line those up for me. And then what I need to do, because yeah, the issue that I'm having is that the other hosts aren't telling me who they want to reach out to or who they want to meet with. And so what I may do is I may just send them a list and say, these are the people that I want to talk to. If any of the rest of you want to talk to them, chime in now. And that way, when I reach out to the conference organizer, I can say, hey, look, can you book, Brad, who's the PM for Angular? Can you book Brad for like 3 interviews in a row? And that way he can just come do the interviews and just be done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, hey, can you book whoever else for, 2 people want to talk to them, and we'll just see if we can line things up that way so that they can just,
yeah,
we can just rotate through with the guests. Yeah. And batch everything up. So yeah, that's kind of the deal there, but it's, yeah, I'm learning the hard way how to make this work, but I think in the long run, it'll pay off. That's and cool. Then I'm trying to get O'Reilly to let me bring it to their conferences, and they're being somewhat resistant because it's like, well, we don't want to give you space on the expo floor. And I'm like, well, I can set it up in, just a public area. And they're like, yeah, well, in the past when we've had podcasters, we've just, given them a table, chairs, and power. And I'm like, that's all I want. I just want to put up my booth around it. and then they quit replying. So, and then they asked me if it was branded, and I'm like, well, kind of. I'm building it so that I can, pull the branding on and off, right? So I can get so that like for each conference, I could get a banner for that conference and just slap it on there and say, right. Hey, we're at whatever. And I'm like, but it doesn't have to be, right?
Who are you talking to about this? That's giving you a hard time.
At O'Reilly?
Well, yeah. Like, what's the? Is it like the conference
one
organizer, or?
Yeah, it's their conference logistics person.
Oh, okay.
And the problem is that especially with these big conferences, like the expo floor is very, very well understood. The speakers are well understood. You know, I'm asking them for something completely different, completely off the wall.
Yeah.
And so initially I was like, well, just put me on the expo floor. If you have extra space, just stick me in there. Oh, we can't do that, right? Because that's premium space. I'm like, fine, then don't put me in there. You know? I'm like, you have other stuff out in the public areas, don't you? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, just, you know, just make me a fixture there. You know, I don't have to be an exhibitor. I don't have to be a sponsor. I don't have to be, you know, blah, 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 you know. And she's like, I was like, you don't have a problem helping me line things up with speakers, do you? Well, no, we do that with media, with press all the time. So the only, yeah, well, I have a press pass to OzCon. But the sticky point is me bringing in and actually setting up a barrier around the podcasting.
All right, so you just get out there, just in front of the building, and you just sit out there with a desk, and you put a sign in front of your desk that says, "The black hole image is fake. Prove me wrong."
Yeah. So I'm pushing it with her, but. Anyway, Velocity is in June, so I'm trying to see if I can make that happen. But I've been talking to her about OzCon, which is in July. So if Velocity doesn't happen, then, you know, if I can make it out to OzCon and make it happen, I think the rest of it comes together, because I'm still working on pulling together like the AI podcast, and they have an AI conference in October. So if I can get in the door with one of these other shows, then I'm talking to the same people and saying, hey, we have a new AI podcast, and we want to come out and interview all the people in October, and then it just happens. So
I wonder if there's a way, like maybe the ship has sailed on this one, but in the future, could you work would there be a way to get start working with like somebody from more of the public relations angle? Because they'd be excited about this. Like if they're the conference promoter, they'd be like really excited about this. What you're working with is somebody who's like thinks about the world's in little boxes, and you don't fit in any of their little boxes. So, but if the mandate came like from somebody else, like get this guy, find a place for this guy, might make the whole thing a lot easier.
Yeah. Let me look at this and see.
So sometimes the best thing to do is to say, "Hey, who's your supervisor? Who do you report to?" And then you say,
media relations.
She's
media relations.
Okay,
so she's not
right.
PR.
But you say who do you report to? Who's your manager? I just wanted to pass them on a note saying of how good of a job you're doing. They always give it up then, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I have the higher person up the chain to talk to.
Well, I know some people who have been involved in the other O'Reilly conferences. So I may just push on them a little bit and say, hey, I know you helped organize Fluent.conf. You know, who's the PR person? But last year, Fluent and Velocity were they were both in the San Jose Convention Center at the same time, and they're both O'Reilly conferences. And so if you got a ticket to one, you essentially got a free ticket to the other one. And Velocity is focused around DevOps, and Fluent is focused on front end. And so, you know, and I'm in the process of, so I reached out to another podcast on DevOps and asked them if I could acquire them. And they said, so, you know, we're clarifying the details right now. And so I don't have a yes, but they haven't published in like 4 or 5 months. So it's not a no either. And I know the people on it really well. So again, I don't want to jump the gun and say who it is before I get it in the bag. But yeah, so if I took on that show, you know, they usually have people at that conference anyway. So then I could line things up and say, okay, you know, so we're going to get some front end folks over here and talk to them for JavaScript Jabber. We're going to get some, you know, some DevOps folks in here talking about this other thing. And then I would also just go reach out to a couple of other podcasts and say, hey, you know, if you can make it out, you know, we've got recording space. And that might help me too, if I could get a couple of other open source related podcasts to say that they're coming and that they want something like this, you know. So So, I could say, hey, look, I talked to these other podcasts. They're submitting for media passes right now that I'm thinking about this. And, they're really excited about the idea of having a dedicated space to do podcasts. That's also kind of out front where people can actually walk up to it and watch them record, right? So they get some face-to-face time with fans or potential listeners. Then I can get a little bit more social proof behind it, and then they might actually look at it and go, okay. But I also feel like if I can knock it out of the park at NGConf, then I can also go to them with that and have the organizers from NGConf say, yeah, we had the podcast booth at NGConf and it was awesome. We had 16 episodes recorded on 4 different shows, and so they can kind of
Right.
I can have them help me make the case. So I'm kind of working all of these different angles. But if I can get into the O'Reilly conferences, then it's not that much of a leap for me to push into some of these other areas and say, okay, like the Amazon AWS. The other thing though that I thought about is I thought about trying to do like an Indiegogo or a Patreon or something, and have people essentially pledge to help sponsor the booth. Because if I bought expo space, I could put the booth in there.
Yeah,
but that's pricey, and I don't know where exactly I'll end up. And not everybody walks through the expo area, so there's some downsides to that. I don't know. I don't love the idea. I'd rather just work with the conference and have them beg me to come back next year instead of assuming that I'll pay my way in every year.
Yeah, I wouldn't start the precedent of paying. Like, you need to just work with the smaller conferences and the ones that the organizers, and get the booths going, and then have success, and then get them to record a little testimonial or something like that on video, and then use that to get into the other conferences to get them to let you do the booth. That's your best way, because you're giving them a huge value add. I mean, every single podcast episode that's recorded in that podcast booth is essentially advertising the conference, because the first thing you say is we're here on the floor of
exactly.
So that's like, if they're like, it's pretty like dumb to not realize that, like, you shouldn't have to pay to do that. So
especially if you looked at the actual price of advertising on your podcast, which might be, I don't know if that would help to spell that out, but
maybe. One other thing that I'm also, the reason I targeted OzCon was because I essentially got an invitation to Chain React, which is a React Native conference, and it's a lot smaller than OzCon, obviously, but it's even by the sort of local conference standard, it's a smaller conference, but it's in Portland the week before OzCon, and so I could just drive out there and do both shows, and so I just load the podcast booth into the back of my truck and just drive to Portland. It wouldn't be terrible to, for Velocity or Fluent to do the same thing and drive out here to San Jose.
I'm waiting for the DevChat.tv bus.
I know, right?
You're going to need to get your own.
Devvan.tv. But anyway, I just think I don't know. I just see this as the opportunity to raise the profile of podcasts, especially my podcasts, at these developer events, and make a splash and kind of get people's attention. And so I'm really, I see this as kind of an out of the box solution to get listeners and get attention. So
actually, it's very much in the box.
Yes, it is the box, literally. But so I also want to do ElixirConf, which I can't remember where that is, but it's also out west somewhere, I think, or maybe in the Midwest. But the one that's tricky is RubyConf. I want to go to, but RubyConf, ElixirConf's in Aurora, Colorado. So that's an 8-hour drive for me. It's not bad, and I kind of like taking the road trip. So it cost me a day to drive there, but whatever. The RubyConf is the kicker because it's in Nashville, and so that'd take me a couple days to drive out there. And so I'd probably have to figure out how to ship it and That's not going to be cheap. I talked to the guys at Buzzsprout because I'm building mine patterned after theirs, so I figure it'll be about the same size and weigh about the same weight. And they said it's like $1,500 to ship it. Oh. And they find some freight company to ship it.
Yeah.
And then, but the flip side is that $1,500 to ship it versus driving to Nashville for 2 days. The other thing though is I have a lot of contacts in Nashville. It's another one of those cities where I could go out there and I could make the most of it. So I could drive out there for 2 days and then be at the conference for the 3 days that they run Rubyconf, and then go meet up with a bunch of folks while I'm there, and then drive back and make it worth the time. But yeah. And I know the organizers of RubyConf. I know the organizers of ElixirConf. I know the organizers of NGConf, and that's why I was able to get into NGConf. So I think talking my way into those conferences wouldn't be a stretch. And so I may just have to, have some wishful thinking and get into the O'Reilly conferences next year. But yeah, I agree. I don't want to set the precedence of, oh, you want to bring the podcast booth back? That's great. We'll give you a discount on the expo space.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that.
Eventually, you want them to pay you to actually be there, right?
NGConf paid me.
Yeah, so.
Right.
But this year, I'm just doing it for free. And then what I'm hoping to do is have it be such a big, positive thing for the conference that next year I go, all right, well, you've got to pay the freight on the shipping the booth or whatever.
Mm.
And and then I can kind of work my way up from there. And so then it becomes a fixture at these conferences where they're willing to drop a couple $1,000s to have it and me come.
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah,
like the Goodyear blimp.
Yep. But I mean, they could totally just set us up in one of the open areas, one of the hallways or something, as long as we're not violating the fire code or whatever. But usually those areas are wide enough and open enough to where they'll set up exhibitors out there anyway. So.
Right. Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a big deal. But yeah, and they're telling me, well, you're responsible for the audio equipment. I'm like, yeah, so. I mean, sure, if nobody's scheduled in there and I want to go do something, then I'll pack it up.
Mm.
But I'm hoping to have it booked most of the time, which means that I or somebody who's willing to man the booth for me is in there that can help them with the audio equipment and stuff. But we'll figure that out. I've talked to a few people that are willing to travel out there with me and do it, so. We'd figure that out, but yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, but yeah, so I've been trying to get some FaceTime with my sponsors that are out here. It is amazing how many companies are out here.
Well, yeah, you're in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, I just didn't realize how many of them were here. Because a lot of them I just talked to over Zoom or the phone, and then, I figure out, so now I'm out here and I had to reach out to a couple of them, and, my CRM's telling me they're in San Francisco, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be here for the next day or so still, do you want to meet up? And yeah. So anyway.
Text them and saying, hey, it's Chick. Everyone wants to meet up with Chick. Who doesn't want to meet up with Chick? Like,
yeah.
I just showing up in my van.
Yeah, I did rent a car, so I've driven it into. I also went over to the twit.tv studios, and that's This Week in Tech.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I get in there and I was like, yeah, I thought about putting together a studio, but I really like kind of running things from home online. And and they looked at me and they said, I was like, so, do you have any advice? And they looked at me and they said, studio might be nice, but don't do video.
Don't do video?
Don't do video.
Why did they say that?
They have a big video set.
Oh,
that
okay.
they put together, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I talked to somebody else, and we were talking about podcasts, and they said the same thing. I gotta don't do video, and I'm like why not? And they're like, well, 80 to 90% of our subscribers listen to just do audio only. It's MP3s that they're grabbing and listening to.
Yeah.
They're like, we have a few diehard fans that watch the shows live, and we've got a few diehard fans that want the video, but the vast majority of people want just straight up audio. And apparently the way that they have things set up, it's just a real hassle for them. I mean, at this point, they've kind of got it down to a system. So, they just run the video anyway, but apparently it's been a real pain for them. And if they had just gone straight up with audio, they wouldn't have had to do nearly as much work to make it go. So, yeah. And I'm kind of inclined, at least at this point, to go with that advice, because I was on the fence about it anyway. I think at some point it might make sense to, get on like an over the top, internet cable box thing, where you have like a Roku channel or something, and then you probably do want some kind of video component to it. But that's way down the road. And then it'd be nice to have like the backlog of content have video, but I'm still not. It'd be a huge investment, and it wouldn't pay off right away. So
yeah, no, it makes sense for you to stick with audio for sure with what you have. Yeah. There's really no benefit to the video component of it.
No, I mean, I'm trying to set things up so that I can do like the DevRev and stuff on video, but it's mostly so that I can be on YouTube and people can find me there and then go find the other shows.
Yeah.
Right. And so it doesn't have to be this big professional setup. I can have a $20 green screen behind me and a nice camera in front of me, and I'm fine. So, yeah. But that's pretty much what I've been doing out here this week.
Nice. Well, you might want to get out of California before they make you pay taxes, Chuck.
I know, right?
So we've been going through the taxes thing again. Basically,
that reminds me real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Manny and I have a call scheduled this afternoon, and I may have to reschedule it again, Manny.
We've been playing tag on this call for
like 2 weeks. Yeah,
weeks now. Like it was my fault, and then Chuck's.
And then it was my fault.
And it's all over the place. But we'll figure it out before we do the promotion. We can't do the promotion unless we get, these things signed up. But I feel like this one has a lot more energy.
Yeah.
Because it's bigger. I actually had one person reach out to me telling me why he found some fault in my funnel. Even though he didn't even buy, he just told me like, these are the problems. And I found you through Chuck's podcast. I'm like, okay, interesting. I think this one should work better. So
nice.
Yeah, I think this will do well.
Yeah. We might be able to do the call on Saturday morning. That's wide open at this point. But one of my sponsors wants to meet literally like right after that call is scheduled. And so I'd have to be in the car again when we did the call. And I think I'd rather be in a position where I can be logged into Drip and we can be looking at what we did last time and figuring this stuff out. So, yeah. Anyway, you were saying, Josh, taxes in California?
Yeah. So basically,
John, you still have both kidneys?
He didn't answer it.
I'm not allowed to say. My non-disclosure agreement doesn't allow me to answer that question.
With the state of California.
So we did. So we got the business taxes done. I got that stuff over to my accountant a while ago, and then he calls me up this week again. He's like, So he's like kind of giving me the preliminary. Well, I was hoping that I'd paid enough in my quarterly taxes where I wouldn't have a big surprise. So I was, yeah, I know.
That was me a couple months ago. It didn't work out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of had my fingers crossed. Like I was sort of half expecting to get another good kick in the crotch, which always seems to happen this time of the year. But yeah, he's like, yeah, you owe more this year to the state of California. And I'm like what is going on here? Because we dissolved last year. We actually paid taxes in California, and the big problem that we had, I realized, was that our accountant last year reported a bunch of income as being California sourced, and I had to pay taxes on that. So this year we made sure that we reported that none of our income is California sourced. Well, California is insane, and basically, like, if you're not paying corporate taxes on income to another state, they assume it's all California. We want it all. So he was basically telling me that I needed to pay taxes on all of the simple programmer revenue distributions from last year. So he's like, well, you don't have to, you can choose not to file, but they're going to come after you. So we checked with John's. So everyone has told me that I'm crazy, that my guy doesn't know what he's talking about on this. So we checked with John's CPA that we use for the business, and he basically said, yeah, that's all true. So he basically said, if I choose not to file, then they probably will come after me at some point, but it will be several years. The process takes several years to go through. And so I'm kind of thinking I'm going to just let them come after me. Come and get me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's weird because I talked to a tax attorney at one point, which was an interesting conversation because it's different than speaking to like a CPA, because a tax attorney actually, he basically described it the best way that I've heard it, which is he said it's a spectrum. It's like there is no, he basically said there's no tax law. There's only a tax law spectrum of interpretation. And he said you should do whatever you can do as aggressively as possible, so long as you have a reasonable justification to prove that it could be interpreted that way. Right. And that was his thing. He's like, it depends on your risk. And he's, he basically said that, like, if you're super risk adverse, then obviously that's not a good choice. But the overall message that he gave me was that it's like, there's so much, like, everything basically can be disputed. Anything, cases can be made for a lot of things. There's a really wide spectrum on the interpretation of the tax law. So he basically was like, yeah, just be as aggressive as possible. And then, and then if like worst case, like best case scenario, you end up saving a lot of money. Worst case scenario, you end up paying what you're going to pay anyway. So,
right. Yeah. That's kind of the conclusion that I've come to with it, is like, as long as it doesn't go straight to, if they don't go nuclear on you right away, yeah, and you have a couple of chances to comply, then it makes sense to kick the can down the road.
Yeah,
make them take the next action. But I have heard some pretty insane examples of cases where people owned this partnership. There's a case that's working its way through the court system now where there's a partnership that was like 3 levels deep. Somebody 3 levels deep owned a small share of a company in California, and California was coming after like all the partnerships upstream, and the California courts ruled in their favor. So it's gotten, but yeah, hopefully they'll get slapped down on that. That would be, because it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So
yeah. the business entity does not exist in California. It exists in Idaho. And the only reason that this is an issue is because John lives in California.
Right.
So we're deemed as doing business in California. Even though our customer base isn't there, John happens to live there. So they're like, they want me to pay full income tax on all of it, basically. So.
Yeah, I better get out of here before I convert too much more oxygen into carbon dioxide here.
There you go. Your carbon footprint is expanding as we speak.
I did fly here, and I'm flying home, so yeah, that sucks. I missed a lot of that too, what you said, just because my internet connection crapped out for a minute.
Yeah, basically the upshot is I think I'm gonna make them bring it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna make them come after you for it?
Yeah. So we're not gonna so I had when I found out when I finally understood it, I was like, man, it would be nice to get the $2,500 back that I paid them last year, but we'd have to we'd probably trigger an audit.
Yeah.
So it's not worth it, but I'm not going to poke the bear too much.
Yeah.
It's what bear? I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, fun.
John, are you a real estate?
But everything else is working?
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
Are you all wrapped up, John, with your transactions, or still?
Not quite. Almost. I have 2 properties that I'm closing on today that they should be funded today. I already closed on them. So, and then I've got 1 other property I'm selling in Boise that is closing next week. And then I've got basically 30 days to close on the property in Kansas City. So, but I'm going over some of the details of that now. Today I have my last day of due diligence for that. So it looks like it should all come off and work out, but it's definitely been a pain.
Seems like a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did end up getting it did end up working out to be pretty good though. The new tax laws actually ended up overpaying by $60,000 to the federal government. So,
oh wow, you're getting a refund?
Well, it doesn't work that way. My accountant is like, oh, hey, you overpaid by $60,000. I'll just apply that to next year's estimated payments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sure.
Yeah, I severely underpaid. So yeah, I got a big fat bill, and apparently the Obamacare and individual mandate repeal goes into effect for when you file next year on this year's income. No. So since I didn't have insurance for half the year, my Obamacare penalty was like $4,000. It was just
what? That's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ow.
So
they've really ramped that up.
But but we qualified for the insurance this year, and it's ridiculously small amount that we have to pay because we're getting a subsidy, and I don't quite understand why, because we're not that poor. So yeah, I'm waiting for that to come back around and clock me in the head. But yeah. Taxes suck.
How's the Facebook ads going, guys?
Well, we didn't hear from the team this week.
Yes, we have not heard yet.
Yeah, so that means nothing. Nothing has happened.
You have not heard from them, even though you reached out to them?
We met with them last week on Thursday, and they were going to follow up with us the next day, was what Dallin had said, and have not heard anything. So they might be reconsidering.
Right.
You guys are the biggest slave drivers that they found.
I know, you're so unreasonable. You wanted to like make money on the money you're spending with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe you guys.
Yeah, this doesn't sound good.
Yeah. They might have just decided to cut their losses.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. I don't know.
What was the conversation last week was that, hey, all right, let's get the 10 steps to learning going.
Yeah. And it was positive. I mean, I didn't really think that.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, they might have been. They might have had a conversation afterwards.
Partly what Zach was telling me. Zach's my friend who's like the Facebook ads guy, but not like for info product guys, but more affiliates. And he was saying a lot of times you get people who will basically take your money because they're using it to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And they will tell you that, hey, we can do all of this stuff, but they're literally just cutting their teeth on the whole thing. So you can end up spending time and energy with them, or you find someone much more like seasoned and proven who for sure, like if that's not working, it's because you're not working, not because the system doesn't work.
Well, you can thank Ty Lopez for that shit, for telling everyone to create a Facebook advertising agency.
Well, so. you can thank John for falling for it.
Huh?
You can thank yourself for falling for it.
For falling for it? Well, yeah, I suppose so. But
right.
Well, they've got existing clients that have results that are verifiable. So, you know, you can't really like, you know, do more than that. So, but you know, if you have something that's already working, that's already making money, then, you know, then anyone can make something that's already successful.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. So.
Well, I hope it works out.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if it doesn't, then, you know, not a big deal. So.
Yeah, let's hope it works.
Yeah.
Otherwise, are you guys still going to go forward with the software career guide?
I think that's the plan. Yeah. Once I get this stuff finished up with the real estate, then that's my next goal, is to start working on that. So.
Okay. Josh, you're in agreement there?
I mean, we got to do something.
There's a ringing endorsement.
I would really like to find.
Josh is in real agreement there.
I would really like to try the see if we can't get the 10 steps to learn anything quickly going, even if it means another if we end up working with another Facebook agency or something, because it's proven.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Maybe.
But
I think the
so here's my
complete software career guide is a long-term play, and the other is a short-term play. So it just depends on which way you're gonna go.
Something I was talking to John about, that's something to consider, which is you guys selling your 2 best-selling courses, how to market yourself and how to learn anything quickly, to a wide swath of audiences. Because so far you guys have made money by mostly selling to your list.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be cool if you guys sold to a list of 100,000 here, 100,000 there. Before you know it, you've sold to lists of millions, these 2 primary products. Because you have enough connections in the space. So you go to Kazi or whoever, I don't know who the people are, but you go to all of these people and sell these products one by one with a decent funnel to double the cart value. That might be good effort until you guys get this product up and running. Because the best way to grow in some ways is not just to sell other people's products to your list, but to sell your product to other people's audiences.
Yeah, we could probably find a lot of people that would. The only thing with it is like, is it worth tapping into that, or is it better to have like the flagship product first that you've got? You know, I mean, when we have everything simplified down to one thing. But I don't know. I mean, you can make argument either way, I guess. But
yeah, the thing that Manny's saying that makes a lot of sense to me though is that if you get a lot of people on board for the 10 steps, then you have them when you launch the flagship product. So, you know, you can make a bigger dent when you do the launch.
Yeah, you're getting paid to acquire customers. So
I think that is the fastest growth strategy for an online business, either ads or JVs, but not JVs where you're promoting to your list, but JVs when you're promoting to their list.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I've actually got a couple of friends who are launching, relaunching, or getting ready to launch stuff, and yeah, I've given them essentially the advice that Manny gave, and I'm just like, look, you just go do a podcast tour and be everywhere.
Yeah.
And talk about whatever it is that you're putting out there. So yeah, if you want to go after 10 steps, learn anything quickly, it may not be a bad way to go.
I think
the thing that's interesting too is that and this is something off of what Josh has said in the past, where he basically said that a lot of times the Facebook ads wind up scooping up people that are already on your list. If you're doing the podcast tour and things like that, yeah, you may wind up scooping up people who listen to you on the podcast, and it might make your Facebook ads more effective.
True.
So. Yeah, it would be interesting. Maybe I'll ping Kazi. It would be interesting to try to get him to do it.
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
Because so the only problem with this in our niche is that it's actually hard for me to get people to agree to do JV where we are selling their product, believe it or not.
Yes. I can see that.
Yeah. And like, I've actually had some resistance from that. Like, we will send you customers, and they're like, yeah, I don't know.
Exactly.
You're working with some sketchy people.
They're not sketchy.
No, they're afraid of marketing.
Afraid of marketing. Yeah.
That's what I mean. They don't understand business.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Parker is a good example from Interview Cake. Like, he would never, he wouldn't even send an email about the career guide when we launched that. And we've done like 100K. We've sent like 100K in business.
Yeah, but we could always twist his arm. We could always say, hey, if you want to ever do business with us again, we're not going to promote your shit. Otherwise, like, you have to promote our shit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
that's also our best performing offer right now.
I was going to say it's almost mutually assured destruction, right? Because you're not going to make any money off of their offer.
He'll have to bend. He'll have to bend.
So you start off by initially making him the offer, saying this is what we think the EPC will be. And then see what happens. And if he says, oh, no, not at all, or if he says, maybe, then you can kind of try to bend him. Would be like, hey, we're thinking of doing an offer for you guys as well. I think it'd be cool if you guys did an offer. It aligns with your audience. So if you guys do that, then we're more likely to want to continue to do this more often in the future, rather than just not feel like it's a real relationship that we want to pursue every time.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It doesn't have to be like a gun to his head, but it can be a subtly persuasive process.
You wrap a sweater around the gun. You come up to them with the arm. Your arm's like, like this,
No, that's not trendy enough. It has to be a turtleneck.
Yeah, there you go. But Kazi,
well.
Kazi might actually go for it. He'd be one to check.
Yeah,
to talk to.
Yeah.
Kazi who?
Kazi from Clever Programmer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the guy.
I was just watching a video the other day. I was looking through my feed, and I'm like, where is it? He's had this video. It was shit. Where is it?
He
I think
started
it's like
a new channel called the Mastiff Mindset.
He did.
Yeah. No. But
God.
he had a video yesterday. Oh, it is why you should join a gym as a Python developer.
Here we go. I'm telling you. The Doberman mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I already have the domain. I'm starting that one next week.
Are you sure it's not the Yorkie mindset?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the poodle mindset.
All right. Well, I've got to jump off. I've got another thing going.
I gotta go too. All right, guys.
All right.
But essentially, my thought is that you have to kind of go do the outsized, insane, out of the box thing in order to sometimes to get traction, and that's what this trip out here was. None of these guys,
I gotta drop off.
The companies they advertise with, wind up coming out to see him, coming out to do anything like this. And so I've made some inroads just by being willing to show up. And then the same thing with the podcast booth, right? Is that, just being in iTunes, you get some traction, but actually being there, and kind of doing the outside thing, I think that's going to pay off. So anyway, that's my thought. There you go. I'm going to sign off, but yeah.
All right.
I'll catch y'all next week.
See ya.
Yeah.
All right. And then there were two. I guess my thought's going to be, I'm reading, so I read this book this week called Secrets of Direct Mail Marketing. And it was by a guy who had about 40 years of experience in direct mail. He wrote it in 1987, I think. And it is shocking how many parallels there are to what he was doing to the internet world. Like all the stuff that we've had to figure out. So one of his rules of thumb was something which actually, I've never heard anybody else say this. I figured it out on my own, which is basically that, within, aside from the price breakpoints, the stair steps, pricing within a range of prices will almost always produce the same revenue. And this what he said, he was saying this like 30 years ago for direct mail, that actually changing the price basically results, you end up in this, he calls it cost per thousand. The cost per thousand ends up being almost identical. And that's what I've seen too, like with the book on Amazon, the price, it'll be close. It'll be within 10%. At 10 different, you can try it at 8 different prices and it'll be within 10% of the optimum. So people get really freaked out about pricing, and for the most part, it doesn't really matter as much as people think it does. So that was really interesting. And then he also had.
So what is the range? He says a range.
He was saying.
How does he quantify a range?
So he was saying that like there are specific breakpoints. You don't always know what they are, but he said like so between 1999 and 29.99 was one, which we've found, right? He said that he's never seen the price of 24.95 do anything. Like it's nothing happens between those two prices. Like you end up at the exact same place. And but it was basically the same price points. It was like I think he said it was like $9.95, $14.95, $19.95, $29.95, $49.95. I mean, basically, exactly.
So is he saying that whether you sell at 19 or 49, it'll be the same?
Often it is. But
then the question is 19, 49, and 99 the same, or Is 49 and 99 will be the same, or is it 19 and 49 will be the same, or is it 9 and 99 are the same? Like, how did he, like, what's the math there? Like, where is the range?
What he recommended was testing the extremes. So test it for, so if you're going to if you're like, so test 99 and test 9 almost. And like in between, you want to find the upper and lower bounds and not screw around so much in the middle, and especially like not waste time testing 59 versus 69. Right? Like it's 49 and 99, not 59 or 69. Like that's not going to matter. And that's what I've found to be the case as well. And then the other thing that he was saying that was really interesting is that there was a very predictable, reliable renewal rate for any kind of continuity product, and it was like 5.5 to 6 deliveries or shipments, which it actually maps pretty well to what we see with most membership sites.
6 months.
Yep. So it's really interesting to see like all this stuff. Like it's very interesting when you find something that is true now that was true 40 years ago, like that. You can get a pretty good sense that, okay, like chances are like you're not going to innovate your way out of that, right? Like there's probably some fundamental principle that's at play there. Anyway, so I guess my thought is to look for those principles. Like that can be that it helps you to see I think what they do the most is they help you eliminate options, like, or anticipate where the pitfalls are, right? And he had an example in there that was interesting where he had an ironclad rule of thumb that self-mailers never pay for themselves. Like they never work. So the self-mailer is like a newsletter or something that is, you print it on like 11 by 17 inch sheet of paper and then fold it down to like 8.5 by 5.5 and tape it together and mail it all in one piece with no envelope. They don't work. They like he almost never saw them work.
What?
Yeah, like if you're going to be, which I see a lot of people do still, but
then what works?
Well, I mean, like taking the same sales letter and sticking it in an envelope would be more effective.
Oh, what is self-mailer then?
Self-mailer is where you fold the piece so that
it's not in an envelope.
It's not in an envelope. You can just kind of close it with a little piece of adhesive and then mail it. And like a newsletter, like if you've ever gotten like a printed newsletter that was 8.5 by 5.5, and then you open it up, you fold it out. As a promotional piece, that does not work.
That's interesting.
So,
yeah, interesting.
But he actually had an example in there where he told someone, this never works, but given your list demographics, you should try this. So it's not, so it's there's always exceptions to this stuff, but it's really useful to know, all right, this was true 40 years ago. Same principle is probably going to apply here. You may choose to try it anyway, but really helps you eliminate a lot of options where you could waste a lot of your time.
Interesting. How does it apply in our world today? What do you think? The pricing thing, yeah, I can see that.
The pricing thing, I mean, I don't know that the self-mailer thing specifically applies, but the continuity
is real.
The continuity thing, yeah, like you're not going to, I mean, yeah, it's really difficult to get around the math of that. Like that should be, when you find something like that, when you're building out your assumptions for the future and planning something out, that should be your starting point, not assuming that you're going to do better. Right? These guys are, and also just being humble about it. I mean, this guy, the stuff they were doing 40 years ago without the internet was in a lot of ways so much more sophisticated than what we're able to do now. And the thing about it too is they were actually able to test things a lot more effectively than we are, because now everything is so multi-touch. You honestly really never know what caused someone to buy. I mean, you know, like it's pretty much impossible to know.
I think it's almost like also there's no way you can attribute one thing as the reason to buy. There's multiple reasons why they bought. It's not one reason why they bought. So it cannot be just that they saw your Facebook ad and they bought. It's also because they saw your Facebook ad and they saw your YouTube videos leading up to the Facebook page. And they also saw your emails and they saw your website and all of those. So attribution is definitely more than just one. At some point, something allowed the sale to happen. But yeah, as long as you're converting positively on your Facebook ad spend, it's worth going with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Whatever the attribution, who cares? You're making the sale. It's bringing money back. It's going to be very hard to figure out the attribution. You can try all you want. You're just not going to be able to do it.
Another thing that was really interesting about this guy was apparently in the direct mail magazine world, they consider a conversion to be the second sale, not the first sale.
What does that mean?
Meaning that they almost look at the first sale as like we look at an opt-in.
A break even.
No. His goal was to break even by the second sale. So with a magazine, it would be like. In that case,
if you're breaking even by second sale, then yeah, he's right. The first sale is an opt-in, right? The first sale is just a.
So he might do he was big on doing sweepstakes, like publishers. He was kind of one of the people that made the whole Publishers Clearinghouse thing. He wasn't working for them, but he was doing that for a bunch of other clients. So the first subscription might be, you know, like a 3-month a 3-month trial thing that they got off of a Publishers Clearinghouse type of sweepstakes, and then he considers the second sale to be a conversion.
Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, it was a really, really good book. It's unfortunately not available. I got it as a bonus. I bought Brian Kurtz from Boardroom, formerly of Boardroom. He released a new book and he had a ton of really good bonuses on that. And it was one of those. This guy was like a contemporary of Eugene Schwartz that did breakthrough advertising. But yeah, it was, I mean.
Brian Kurtz was a contemporary of Eugene Schwartz?
Oh yeah, Brian Kurtz actually worked with him. But this guy that wrote the direct mail book was also. Yeah.
Interesting.
So my filter, like when I hear something new, I think that the stuff they figured out 40 years ago was a lot better tested and tried out than what a lot of the stuff that people consider to be in new innovations now, because they had a much better control over testing back then. Because literally, like, it was as simple as mailing list, direct mail letter. Like, there was no multi-touch. Most of the stuff people weren't hearing about it any other way. So you know, if you hear something that somebody's come up with that goes in direct opposition to a lot of this stuff, then you know, it's.
I can see that.
Yeah, I'm real skeptical.
Yeah. So. Though multi-touch changes the game in a different way, in the sense it brings up different challenges and also different solutions to the game, right? The multi-touch economy is, it doesn't have to be constrained by the rules of the one-touch economy that used to exist back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. What are my thoughts? I have a lot of thoughts. I've been thinking about just focusing, just like what Chuck was saying, like go all out on getting on all podcasts and stuff like that, but more like if relationships are the ultimate leverage, as John and I have been saying for the last few months, and I've been saying that for years now, then what if I were to spend crazy amount of time just on that, on leveraging relationships, on building, and like spending more time on relationships, and like almost like focusing on that as the metric compared to anything else, as a way to move the business forward. Because our own individual effort can only lead us so far. But if we get someone else to join us on the journey, it changes the game quite a bit, right? So that is something to be considered as well, like relationships. So I'm like thinking a lot about how, or what I can do to literally spend a lot more effort and energy on leveraging relationships, building and leveraging relationships.
Any preliminary ideas? Any preliminary ideas?
So the idea that I have is basically going out to people that I am already friends with or that I already have relationships with, and try to see how we can work together. Much more than what I've been able to do so far, like becoming really proactive about it, like going and looking at all their web properties and looking at everything that they've done and seeing, okay, well, how about we do this together? How about we do this together? How about we do this together? And like becoming very intentional about that as the way to grow the business, rather than, you know, more YouTube videos and more podcasts on my own channel and my own websites and stuff like that. So all the people, like there's so many people I know now in the space, trying to figure out how we can work together is the thing I'm thinking about and going after right now.
Yeah.
Like even with you guys, one of the things that we've been thinking about, like writing those blog posts and then using those to lead to a sale, I think that's totally doable. And I've already started writing those, and I'll send them to you guys. But that's just a way of thinking like, hey, how can we do more together? Because there's so much more we can do together, rather than just be like, okay, these emailers are all we do together or something like that, right? And also like 10 steps to learn anything. That's something I would love to promote on my channels, podcast, and email list as well. So figuring out ways that's just us, right? With Chuck as well, we've done the productivity one, but how can we do more? Or with Evan Carmichael, or with Antonio, or with because Pat invited me to be on his podcast, Pat Flynn. I'm going to be on his podcast sometime, probably July or August.
Cool.
To talk about, so that, like another one, like, so all of these, like I have different phases of different relationships going on, but I haven't really focused on, because one of the things I want to do for Pat is create an animation video summary of his book.
Oh,
that'd be cool for his like channel.
Yeah.
Which would still drive, like, be like, hey, if you're interested in summaries like this, then you should come check out my channel. So literally thinking of how you leverage all of these relationships.
This is just maybe just a random idea. Have you ever thought about doing these book summaries as a service?
As a service?
Yeah.
I have thought about that, and yes, that is possible. That is realistic. That would just be not on our channel. It would be a separate business altogether in some way. Because we would just be conveying the ideas from the author, so that they can use it to market their books and products. Yeah, definitely thought about that. I actually had one time someone bought the licenses to one of my videos. I did a video on getting things done. So a Korean publisher came to me and said, hey, we're launching this book in Korea. We would like to buy the rights to this video in Korea. Can you just give us the video and we'll pay you? And they paid me $1,000 just for the Korean rights for that one video. So things like that. Yeah. So I'm sure if in Korean there is one, if Korean publisher, and that time I was like so small and I was like nobody, and it was like 4 years ago they came to me, 3.5, 4 years ago. Today, it's a different story. I mean, you have to look at the economy of scale here, right? If we did this, and if I charged an author maybe $2,000 to $5,000 for a video like this, I need 200 authors a year to actually make $1 million. That's a lot of fucking authors to deal with, and to sell a $5,000 package too.
Yeah.
Right. And to be able to be like, hey, this animation video, it's not going to go on my YouTube channel. It's going to go on your video properties, which will be very difficult for them to. So I'd like to do it. I just don't see that as.
It's a different business.
It's a very different business, because then I'm not really expressing myself. I'm like, we're going to get censored by the authors, as in we don't want this, we want that. And all of that shit is cool, except then I'd much rather let the authors do it themselves and give them the animation services.
Right.
Which is another angle. Just animation services for authors to like basically teach them how to tell the best parts of the, like teach the best from their book, so people will want to buy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah, different angles. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, going back to the whole idea of like working with others and trying to figure out different angles, I feel like I have a lot of relationships that there's so much potential to work together. I just need to know which one would be the best. Yeah. Like not which one would be the best. I just need to spend a lot more time and energy on this to explicitly grow these things.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I almost feel like the whole quarter can be spent just doing that, building and leveraging relationships and taking them to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
All right, buddy.
See you next week.
Later.